Hello everybody, Eternal Flame here, and today I'm here to talk about the JJK 264 chapter review of the decisive battle in the uninhabited demon-infested Shinjuku part 36. JJK continues his perfect naming streak once again, with this one being by far and away his best name yet. After all, it's part 36 of the indecisive uninhabited battle in Shinjuku. Anyways, let's get straight into it because this is actually a really good chapter. I'm really hyped about it, so without further ado, let's go. As the chapter immediately starts by showing us the four people that we were focused on last chapter, being Hana, Sukuna, Yuji, and Todo. And while Hana, Yuji, and Todo are all locked in, especially Hana being prepared to launch out the Jacob's Ladder at full potency or as strong as she can, you can see in Sukuna's eyes that he's actually genuinely worried about this, which that is an expression that I have been missing, seeing Sukuna worried about something, because you can see in his eyes, just like his eyes are wide, because like Sukuna remembers what happened last time when he got hit by this attack, and considering how weakened his soul is already, considering he threw up some of his fingers, this is gonna be real bad if this hits him. And this is when Sukuna's plan begins, as Sukuna punches the ground, shattering the ground, and he does the unthinkable. He does the thing that nobody had expected him to do, because no one expected Jacob's Ladder to work. But no one expected the way of how Sukuna was going to counter it, because Sukuna decides he's literally going to climb the ladder. Or, well, more so he's going to use the rubble that he launched out to actually climb up Jacob's Ladder in order to hit Hana in the back. But that's still just funny that the way that he decided he's going to counter Jacob's Ladder is just like, I'm gonna take your name literally and literally climb the ladder. However, it's then Sukuna actually begins to analyze the situation and begins to explain to us why this Jacob's Ladder is much weaker than the first time he actually used it on Sukuna, when Sukuna took Megami's body. Where he says, unlike a Kotsu's domain, where he could select the technique's target, this Jacob's Ladder will hit Todo Aoi and the Brat too. If I scale the Pillar of Light, I'll be able to reach the angel without any interference. They are coexisting within that body. You are nothing but a strong technique in a weak shell. Losing one of their arms make that fact all the more true. They aren't able to garner the same output they did back then. Angel, before I'm torn from Fushiguro Megami's body, I'll end your life. So basically, because of the fact that Angel has a relatively weak body in comparison to most sorcerers, she has a weaker output on the technique. Furthermore, she also lost her arm, which made it even weaker because she now has this permanent sense of damage to her. Which is also pretty consistent that damage ends up weakening sorcerers, considering things that we have seen in the past, such as Choso after Shibuya, making it important to note that Yuji was still injured after he had become a demon god and become much stronger in comparison to what he was before. However, this is when we get an absolutely insane durability feat for Todo, because Sukuna lands a Black Flash directly on Todo's body, and Todo lives through it. Now, the reason why this is absolutely insane is because the last Black Flash, Todo used the Vibra Slap to block it, but now there's just Todo's own body blocking what should be a stronger Sukuna's Black Flash, because Sukuna already landed a Black Flash beforehand. Also, more importantly, Todo was able to scale this entire distance before Sukuna could even land the Black Flash and just appear out of nowhere, and he doesn't really have anything to clap with left, which means Todo is just that fast now, which is also absolutely insane. And people are still trying to say Todo didn't get that much stronger over the 1 month time skip. As in that moment, Sukuna actually acknowledges Todo as a true Jujutsu sorcerer, something that he hasn't done for literally anyone else here, and that is absolutely impressive and insane, and I love it for my boy Todo, because Todo is the man. However, Todo is then launched down into the ground, with Hana being launched down with him in the same time, now just making it a 1v1 of Yuji versus Sukuna once more. As Yuji hopped out from the burning light of Jacob's Ladder, hopping right after Sukuna, as something that needs to be remembered, if it's just pain, it won't stop Yuji Itadori. After all, there's something that even impresses Sukuna, the fact that Yuji was able to chase after him despite the fact that he was getting burned, as Yuji lands a punch straight on Sukuna's face before slamming him right through a building. As this is when Yuji tries to perform a technique similar to that of Cleave Spiderweb. However, Sukuna does something that catches Yuji completely off guard, which is regaining his RCT after that Black Flash and using it in order to heal his hand mid-punch and punch Yuji in the face with it. And now Sukuna has all 4 of his arms back. While he doesn't have all of his output back from the Black Flash, he does have his 4 arms back from before. And this is when Sukuna begins to use his 4 arms to his advantages, using 2 of his arms to hold Yuji down while pulling him into strikes with his other 2 arms, and repeatedly just bashing him in while the 2 of them are fighting, mainly because of the fact that Yuji can't really land any strikes because of the fact that Sukuna's 4 arms are just too good at actually holding him down. as Sukuna acknowledges the fact that he doesn't need to make risky moves like he did against Gojo, because his technique is just going to recover normally eventually, and once that is done, he can execute Yuji. However, Yuji just repeatedly keeps missing the dismantle, mainly because of the fact that Sukuna is repeatedly dodging that dismantle. Sure, it can be extremely lethal to somebody like Sukuna because of the fact that it targets the barrier between the soul, but that is meaningless if he can never hit him. Now, I do want to say this, Yuji can definitely deactivate the Binding Vow if he wants to deactivate the Binding Vow in order to not make it target the barrier between the souls specifically, but he has no reason to. Even though he is missing attacks, he has no reason to deactivate it. After all, for self-imposed Binding Vows, if you break it, all that is lost is what is gained. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I saw some people who genuinely believe that Yuji's Dismantle is only able to target the barrier in between the soul permanently now, but that is not the case, so I just felt the need to actually explain that properly. Also, I gotta say, I really love how Sukuna is using his forearms to his advantage in this hand-to-hand clash. It really just shows how tactical of a fighter Sukuna is, because Sukuna's real combat style and real fighting style is with those forearms. That is how he is most used to fighting. However, it's then Yuji gets a flashback to when Gojo had first used his domain expansion against Jogo and showed him how domains worked. Cursonics and Beautiful domain are guaranteed to hit, as Yuji puts his fingers together and uses a domain expansion. Through switch training with Atsuya Kusakabe, Yuji Itadori learned the fundamentals of barrier techniques, as Yuji and Sukuna appeared in what looked like the inside of a train station, with Sukuna sitting down on a bench in Yuji Kuna's body, and Yuji standing up to Sukuna telling Sukuna, "Come on Sukuna, let's go." And that is the end of the chapter. The decisive one-on-one heads into an uncharted domain. And there is so much to talk about. For example, a lot of people, me myself included, actually believe that this is the same train station that was shown to us in the first opening of JJK, which means Gege might have been foreshadowing it ever since the first episode of JJK that this was going to be Yuji's domain. Which, if Gege has been foreshadowing it for that long, that is absolutely insane. But at the same time, I wouldn't put it past Gege, considering this is the same guy who in the first chapter cover included some foreshadowing that Sukuna was going to take over Megami's body. So if he did that, then it wouldn't surprise me if he also included this inside of the first JJK opening, and very intentionally got them to include this as part of the first JJK opening. Because it was always confusing to me why they had such a train motif in that part of the opening, mainly because for that season of JJK, the train didn't really matter. So like for a little bit, I just thought that it was just hype for Shibuya and it was going to be foreshadowing for that, but if it's foreshadowing for this makes a significant more amount of sense. There's also the question of how good is Yuji's domain actually going to be in comparison to other people's domains, and I do think he's going to have an extremely strong domain, mainly because he needs to remember that the barrier technique fundamentals that he got is from the GOAT Kusakabe himself, and Kusakabe himself is the best simple domain user that we have ever seen, and Yuji's basically applying that simple domain skill to his actual domain expansion, so his barriers are definitely going to be really good. We also know Yuji's simple domain is able to last for quite a while against Sukuna's domain expansion at full output. Now, we don't know if it's like the full 99 seconds or not, but we do know that it was able to last for a while nonetheless. And like I said before, that skill is now being applied to his domain expansion barriers itself. However, now onto the most important discussion that we need to have, which is the speculation on what Yuji's sure hit is going to be, and I actually have a couple ideas for what Yuji's sure hit is going to be. I'm going to go over these ideas, however, I'm probably going to make a second video talking about them much more in depth, so I have a couple ideas, so let's get into it. Now, my first idea for what the shirt is going to be, and while this is probably the most boring idea, I also think it is the most likely one to happen. The shirt hit is just going to be Shrine and just going to be repeatedly using this soul dismantle on the barrier in between the souls, and this is Yuji just more and more getting Sukuna's soul out of them and forcibly moving it back into his body. That's what I can see being likely. Another thing that I think might be possible is Yuji's sure hit being something that forcibly transfers a soul out of a body, not using dismantle, but using blood manipulation instead. However, there's the final theory that I have for what Yuji's domain expansion might actually do, and if it's this is probably the most broken domain in the entire series, which the way that Yuji's domain expansion might work is similar to the technique of Izanami from Naruto, where it forces the opponent that's stuck inside of the domain to go onto a train, where the train takes them down memory lane time and time again and forces them to repeatedly relive their lives, until they decide that their life had been satisfying enough and actually been able to look at the good in their life instead of just the bad parts of their lives, and when they accept how life is, they just pass on. Now, as a note, I think this is by far and away the least likely idea of all the domain expansion sure hits that could be possible, but the main reason why I'm bringing this up is because of Yuji's entire motivation of giving people good deaths. So what better way to give somebody a good death than having them relook at their lives and being able to see all the positives of their lives rather than seeing the negatives of their lives. However, those are my free domain ideas. I might come up with even more before that video comes out, but that's about everything that I have to talk about in this chapter review. I hope y'all enjoy. I'm gonna see y'all later. Have a good day. Peace out.